On a quiet Sunday morning, golden autumn light spilled across the cobblestones of Beacon Hill. Inside the Mitchells' stately brownstone, the monthly family brunch was underway. The dining room glowed beneath a crystal chandelier that had graced the family for generations, casting soft light over polished antiques and silverware. By the tall window, a Boston fern stretched its rich green leaves, as if reminding everyone of its own long life, nearly 150 years, rooted as deeply in the house as the family's traditions. "Kate, did you make this quiche yourself?" Patricia Mitchell lifted her fork with a poised smile, her tone sweet but laced with steel. Clad in tweed, she was the very image of Boston society. Sarah was so talented with French cuisine. Her cocoa van was always beloved at the church charities. Catherine, Kate, Mitchell's smile never wavered, though her pulse quickened at the mention of her late sister-in-law. In a navy cashmere dress, she sat with quiet dignity, every inch the polished professional she had trained herself to be. "Yes," she replied smoothly. "I followed Julia Child's recipe. I believe she lived here in Beacon Hill too." Across the table, her husband Robert cleared his throat and ran a hand through his graying hair, avoiding his mother's gaze. For 3 years Kate had endured these Sunday rituals, where fine china gleamed but barbed words always found their mark. "Kate," a cheerful voice cut through the tension. Emily, her sister-in-law, leaned forward with a radiant smile. "Would you help me with my wedding? We're having the ceremony at the cathedral. Reception at the Four Seasons." Emily, in her crisp white coat from a morning shift at the hospital, had always been Kate's warmest ally. "Of course," Kate said at once. "Anything you need." Patricia gently set her Wedgwood teacup down. "But dear, you may not be familiar with society customs. Even addressing the invitations follows very particular traditions." Kate's hands trembled ever so slightly as she lifted her cup, though her face stayed serene. Robert glanced at her, torn, but said nothing. The silence weighed heavily. "Mother," Emily said firmly, "Kate's taste is impeccable. Everyone admired her speech at the gala." Patricia's smile remained polished. "Naturally. Still, Mitchell traditions must be respected. Emily's wedding will be the talk of Boston." The silverware sparkled, the flowers arranged perfectly by the family's longtime florist, yet unseen cracks in the elegant scene deepened. Kate straightened her back. She had worked her way from a modest background to the upper ranks of investment banking, a career built on merit and resilience. But here, under Sarah's portrait by the fireplace, she often felt she would always be a replacement, never fully accepted. "By the way," Patricia added airily, "there's a church committee meeting Wednesday. Kate, perhaps you'd like to join us, if your work allows." The pointed undertone was clear. No matter how flawless her manners or attire, she would remain an outsider. Kate smiled. "Thank you, Patricia. I'll rearrange my schedule." This, too, was an investment, one not for her career, but for her life with Robert. At the bridal salon on Newbury Street, Emily's reflection shimmered in silk organza. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, making the beaded gown sparkle as if woven with light. "She looks like an angel," Patricia whispered tearfully, her Hermes scarf fluttering, so much like Sarah on her wedding day. Kate, in her tailored navy suit, stood a step back, the picture of composure, though the distance between her and the moment was unmistakable. "Kate, would you take a photo?" Emily asked warmly. Before Kate could answer, Patricia interjected, "Oh, let me. This is a family memory." The meaning was clear. Kate quietly reached into her bag and offered a card. "This photographer handles our corporate events. His work is excellent. Shall I book him for the wedding?" Emily's eyes lit up. "Perfect." Patricia's lips tightened. "But we've always used the Mitchells' traditional photographer." "Mother," Emily countered gently, "I want Kate's choice this time. His portfolio is stunning." Patricia froze, then forced a gracious nod. "As you wish." But the cold look she shot Kate carried a silent warning. Choices against tradition come with consequences. Later, at the Four Seasons, the private dining room glowed beneath chandeliers. Jessica, the wedding planner, checked the seating chart. At the main table, immediate family. "Wait," Emily interrupted. "Kate isn't listed at the family table." Patricia smiled smoothly. "Oh, an oversight, dear, but changes now would be quite troublesome. wouldn't they? Jessica started to protest, but Patricia's gentle hand silenced her. Kate rose quietly. It's fine. I'll sit elsewhere. But then Robert spoke, his voice firm. For once. No, that's wrong. Kate is my wife. She belongs at the main table. The room froze. Patricia's eyes met her son's, her gaze colder than he had ever known. Later that night, seated beneath a chandelier, Kate scrolled through work emails on her tablet, waiting for Robert. At a nearby table, two women whispered. Yes, Patricia said that investment banker woman trapped her son, not at all like Sarah, so cultured, so refined. How could someone with no family background possibly belong? Kate's fingers froze on the screen, heat burned in her cheeks, but her spine stayed rigid. The chandelier above sparkled elegantly, but in that glittering light Kate realized the truth, her battle with tradition had only just begun. Burned. Forgive my interruption, James, Emily's fiancé, suddenly interjected. With the calm authority of a seasoned cardiac surgeon, he turned toward the gossiping women. His tone was sharp but gentlemanly. Speculating about others' lives in such a crude way hardly suits the etiquette of Boston's high society, don't you think? The women flushed, their composure faltering, and quickly excused themselves. James took the empty seat beside Kate. Don't let it trouble you, he said softly. Aunt Patricia is trapped in her own rigid values. That's her burden, not yours. Kate managed a smile of gratitude, though her eyes betrayed her unease. Tomorrow's wedding loomed, and with it the weight of unspoken tensions. The air around them seemed fragile, as though unseen strings were tightening, pulling the family toward an inevitable clash. Boston's evening lights flickered on outside the window, casting their glow over a city that held its breath, the silence of a storm gathering strength. The next day, twilight filtered through the stained glass of the Four Seasons Hotel, casting indigo hues across the grand ballroom. More than 300 guests were gathered beneath crystal chandeliers, the air alive with the strains of a string quartet. White and gold decorations shimmered like a scene from a painting. Emily was radiant, a vision of grace in a custom Vera Wang gown. Her vows, clear and steady, carried across the room and moved even the most stoic guests. Warm applause filled the air as she and James were wed. Kate, as maid of honor, fulfilled her role with composure, yet, even as she smiled, she could feel Patricia's presence dominating the room like a queen on her throne. It was a magnificent ceremony, praised a trustee of the Boston Symphony, a perfect continuation of Mitchell tradition. Patricia's eyes gleamed with pride. Thank you. Our family has carried such traditions for generations. Before she could finish, waiters began unveiling the main course beneath polished silver cloches. Aromas filled the air, wines sparkled in crystal, plates landed before every guest. Except Kate. At first, she assumed it was a simple oversight, but when dish after dish was placed and her setting remained bare, murmurs began to ripple nearby. Kate leaned toward a waiter, her voice low and polite. Excuse me, is my meal on the way? The young server faltered, glancing at his manager, and then, Patricia's voice rang out, cold, cutting. You should be grateful just to sit at this table. The words sliced through the air. The string quartet faltered into silence. 300 guests froze. Emily's face drained of color. James stiffened. Robert stared at his mother as though seeing her for the first time. Kate folded her napkin, laid it neatly on the table, and stood. In her Chanel gown, she carried the calm authority of a woman who had negotiated billion-dollar deals. Then this outsider, she said, her voice steady, will divorce and leave. The hall erupted in shock. Patricia's face went pale. For the first time in her reign over Boston society, her mask cracked. "No, wait," she cried, rising hastily and knocking over her wine glass. Crimson spread across the white tablecloth like spilled blood. The Queen's grace had shattered. Robert's voice thundered, "Mother, this is unforgivable. Kate is my wife. She has endured your cruelty for 3 years in silence. No more." Emily wept openly, her white gown trembling as she clutched James's arm. "Mother, how could you? On my wedding day?" Gasps and whispers spread. The guests, pillars of Boston society, lowered their eyes in shame. Then Jessica, the wedding planner, spoke with a trembling voice. "I must confess, Mrs. Mitchell gave explicit orders not to prepare a meal for Kate, and this wasn't the only instruction. The dress shop, the photo session, the seating arrangement, everything was planned." The room reeled. Patricia's reputation, cultivated over decades, collapsed in moments. Her allies shifted away, unwilling to be tainted. "It will be tomorrow's headline," whispered a reporter from the Boston Globe. Sunset poured crimson through the ballroom windows, casting a harsh glow on a family unraveling. Patricia clutched at her pearls, desperate. "I only wanted to protect the Mitchell name. Sarah was perfect, cultured, from the right family." "Sarah is gone," Robert said firmly, his voice breaking but resolute. "She died 7 years ago. Kate is not her shadow. She is my partner, my light." Emily's sobs turned to anger. "Mother, when Kate was hospitalized last year, you hesitated to visit because of reputation. But her parents, middle class as you call them, stayed all night at her bedside. Their love is real. Yours is pride." James's voice followed, sharp and cold. "I mend hearts every day, Patricia, but what I saw here tonight, these wounds may never heal." Then, quietly, Margaret Williams, the family's longtime priest, stepped forward. "Patricia, last month in confession you admitted you could not let go of Sarah, but this is not love. This is chains forged from pride." Patricia's composure crumbled. Her hands shook violently. I was wrong." She collapsed into a chair, scarf slipping from her shoulders, her regal facade in ruins. "Everyone," she whispered, "forgive me." Robert bowed to the guests. "You've seen our shame tonight, but perhaps this moment will allow us to rebuild as a true family." Emily wiped her tears and stepped forward with James. "Our wedding didn't unfold as we dreamed," she said softly, "but maybe this can be the day we finally begin again." Night descended over Boston. The chandeliers glowed above, no longer symbols of grandeur but of truth exposed. The atmosphere was heavy, yet within it flickered a fragile light of hope. But back at her mansion, Patricia sat alone long into the night. For the first time, stripped of her court, the Queen of Boston society faced the silence of true solitude.